Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution. Turn off the genes that are killing you and your waistline. By Stephen R. Gundry. Narrated by Stephen Bell Davies. Publisher's note: this audiobook is packaged with bonus material, which has been included on the first audio and MP3 CD. If you downloaded this audiobook in a digital format, please visit Tantor.com and type Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution into the search box. Follow the link to the book's page, then click on PDF Extra 1. When prompted, enter the access code PROTEIN to access the bonus material. Introduction. Is this you? Your skin is clear and unwrinkled. Your slim body moves with ease and grace, and you're blessed with strength, stamina, and good health. You look 45 tops, but here's the zinger. You're really 70. No way, you say. Forget 70. Let me introduce you to Michelle, a pseudonym as are most patient names. At our first meeting, I saw a striking, thin, erect woman who appeared to be about 65. I looked at the chart again and thought I had the wrong examination room. Her age was listed at 95. Michelle had recently seen me on television and said I was the first doctor who talked like one she met when she was 20, who had changed her life. His message was succinct. Go home and throw out every white food in your pantry and never eat such food again. For 75 years she had done just that. In that time she had buried 2 husbands, including a physician, who told her that her eating habits were crazy. He was long dead, but here she was, her perfect skin radiating health. Unlike many women in Palm Springs, she had never had plastic surgery. When I took Michelle's temperature, it was 95 degrees, meaning she had a low and therefore efficient metabolic rate. Her blood pressure was an exemplary 95/55. When her blood samples were analyzed, as I expected, they were perfect. Low cholesterol, no evidence of inflammation. An active businesswoman, Michelle is now 96 and still shows no signs of aging. And why should she? Her longevity genes are activated, preserving her from harm. Rather than being in survival mode, she exists in what I call perfect efficiency, which is what I hope to attain, and the same goal I have for you. Live long and prosper, Michelle. Is this more like you? You weigh more than you did in high school, perhaps a lot more. You pop 1 or more daily pills for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, acid reflux, depression, and or arthritis. You may be sending your dermatologist's children through college by having benign skin tags burned off your neck and armpits. While you're there, you may get treated for adult acne. If you're a woman, your hair may be thinning. Perhaps you've had some colon polyps and or breast lumps removed. Am I hitting a little too close to home? If so, what if I suggested that even if you do not already have diabetes, hypertension, heart and vascular disease, cancer, or another life-threatening disease, you've got a lot in common with people who do? What if I could demonstrate that you and they have all unwittingly set into motion what I call killer genes, which caused these and other unforeseen consequences? Preposterous? Until 6 years ago, I certainly would have thought so. But now I am convinced that these seemingly chance events are, for a great many of us, predictable outcomes. And to a large extent, it's our Western diet and lifestyle that are making us sick and ultimately killing us, although paradoxically, as you'll soon learn, they suit our genes just fine. Sadly, as a heart surgeon, I don't see many people like Michelle, at least initially. Many of my patients are severely ill and often prematurely aged. Most are also overweight. Why some people like Michelle seem to have sipped from the fountain of youth even as they near the century mark, while most of us are wrinkled, arthritic, overweight, and plagued with complaints by the time we're eligible for AARP membership, has long been a mystery. Is it luck? Good genes? Over the last 5 years, I have unraveled much of that mystery. Yes, our genes play a major role, but not in the way we have been led to believe. Michelle did not inherit good genes. Quite the opposite. Since her life-changing encounter 75 years ago, she has been instructing her genes to be good. I've also discovered how to do the same no matter what genetic cards a person has been dealt. What I have found argues powerfully for a major and immediate change in lifestyle. Dr. Gundry's diet evolution is based on radically simple, but simply radical changes that will make you slimmer, fitter, and healthier. You may well become another Michelle. By now you're probably thinking I'm a fanatic trying to spread the latest theory of doom and gloom, or that I'm the equivalent of a modern-day snake oil salesman, determined to dupe you into blowing your hard-earned dollars on worthless natural cures and supplements. I can assure you that I am neither. In fact, my credentials would suggest that I am the most unlikely person to suggest that killer genes are responsible for excess weight and a host of other ills. I'm in the human survival business. Up until 6 years ago, I primarily flexed my survival muscles as a heart surgeon and researcher on how to keep heart cells alive under stress, operating on infants with malformed hearts and adults with blocked coronary arteries or valves. I've been peering inside bodies, and especially the heart's blood vessels, for the past 30 years as the former professor of surgery and pediatrics in cardiothoracic surgery and head of cardiothoracic surgery at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. I'm also the inventor of the Gundry retrograde cardioplegia cannula, one of the most widely used devices to keep the heart muscle alive during open heart surgery by delivering heart protective ingredients backward through the veins of the heart. Before everyone else was trying to push them forward past arterial blockages, my backward idea was initially called crazy, like giving the heart an enema, said prominent heart surgeon Dr. Denton Cooley. But today my device is the gold standard for protecting the heart during surgery. Why? Because I refused to accept conventional wisdom. Millions of patients later, conventional wisdom has been overturned. I also hold patents on numerous other devices to repair leaky heart valves or sew new blood vessels into the heart without sutures. Together, my colleague Leonard Bailey and I have performed more infant and pediatric heart transplants than anyone in the world. My laboratory holds the record for producing the longest surviving pig-to-baboon heart transplant, 28 days, when others claimed it could only last hours. I was one of the original 20 surgeons who tested the first successful artificial heart, one of the first surgeons to use robots in operations, and the first to design and perform heart valve operations through 2-inch holes. You could say I'm a maverick. I've always looked at problems of the heart and survival from a different perspective. Perhaps that's why I've had the honor of being inducted as a fellow of the American Surgical Association, comprising the top 500 surgeons in the world, and have consistently been selected by a poll of 10,000 of my peers as one of Castle Connolly's top American doctors. I've also published more than 300 articles, abstracts, and book chapters on my research and techniques. Another thing about myself, but of this I am anything but proud, I was obese. Yes, that's right, an obese heart surgeon. I was also hypertensive and insulin resistant, and I suffered from migraine headaches and arthritis. Even though I ran 20 miles a week, visited the gym daily, ate healthy, and always had a Diet Coke in my hand, I was still obese. I lost weight on every diet that came down the pike, and then rationalized its inevitable return. Until I discovered how to communicate with my genes, I couldn't seem to deal with the extra weight, high cholesterol, arthritis, and tendency to diabetes, the very same health issues many of you are facing. One more claim to fame. I was the medical consultant and also had a big part in the movie The Doctor, starring William Hurt, about a heart surgeon who changes his ways when he develops a potentially life-threatening disease. As it turns out, the premise of the film couldn't have been more prophetic. Surgeons are trained to fix problems, usually with an operation. 6 years ago, when I was at Loma Linda, a guy I'll call Big Ed strode into my office, and a day later my career and my life made a sharp U-turn. He was carrying an angiogram, a movie of the heart's arteries that, among other things, reveals the presence of cholesterol plaques and blockages. Big Ed, who was then in his late 40s, could serve as the poster child for Harley-Davidson bikers, big beer gut, ponytail, and 2 days' growth of beard. He had been told that his condition was inoperable, and his cardiologist referred him to me as someone who takes cases no one else wants. But after reviewing Big Ed's angiogram, sadly I had to agree with the other surgeons. Inoperable. Crushed, but determined, Big Ed then informed me that since that angiogram had been done 6 months earlier, he'd lost 45 pounds and had been taking handfuls of herbs and supplements several times a day. Maybe, he suggested, his efforts had cleaned up his arteries. His story was interesting, but Big Ed had only downsized to 260 pounds, like the Hummer 2 compared to the original. As I stroked my professional beard and smiled knowingly, I told him his worthless supplements only made expensive urine, as I was fond of saying then. While his weight loss was commendable, it wasn't going to improve the state of his blood vessels. But Big Ed made me an offer. Since neither of us had anything to lose, how about we repeat his angiogram to see if anything had changed? Well, Big Ed got his quintuple bypass later that week. Although his arteries were still very diseased, remarkably most of the blockages had shrunk by more than 50%, meaning that there were now places to plug in new blood vessels. In all my years, I had never seen such a reduction in blockages. As a surgeon, I was delighted, but the researcher in me was even more intrigued. So, after Big Ed left the hospital, I asked him to bring in his treasure trove of vitamins, minerals, and herbs. As I listened to how he had constructed his diet, I was transported back 30 years to when I researched this field for my honors thesis on human evolutionary biology at Yale. After medical school, I applied this knowledge as a clinical associate at the National Institutes of Health, where I developed methods and treatments to prevent and reverse damage in coronary arteries and heart muscle cells. Our encounter started a personal quest that upended most of my preconceived notions about the underlying causes of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, obesity, and you name it. I dug up my college thesis to try my own diet based on principles of human evolution. Using sophisticated bioassays of my blood from a renowned laboratory, I experimented with foods, supplements, and exercise. The results were amazing. I lost 50 pounds over the first year. I've since lost another 25, but more important, I restored my body's normal cellular functioning. As just one example, my LDL, bad cholesterol, dropped more than 100 points, while my HDL, good cholesterol, increased 150%, all without drugs. My blood pressure, which was once 145/95, is now 90/50. As my program progressed, the numerous so-called benign skin tags I had had for years fell off. My migraine headaches vanished. I could go on and on about the benefits. What happened next is still a blur. I resigned my position at Loma Linda University and moved to Palm Springs to establish the International Heart and Lung Institute, and within it, the Center for Restorative Medicine. I began to offer my diet evolution program to patients I had operated on in the hope that it would enable them to avoid a second operation. My office nurse, nurse practitioner, and office manager all started the program and lost 72 pounds, 45 pounds, and 42 pounds, respectively. Then, one fateful day, I was referred a patient with 90% blockage in the main artery to the brain. He needed a carotid endarterectomy, which entails opening up the artery, removing the plaque, and sewing it back up. His case was especially tricky because the lesion was relatively inaccessible, requiring the use of an experimental technique. So I suggested he try diet evolution while we consulted with the surgeon who pioneered the technique and ran some more tests. 2 months later, he was down 12 pounds, and while doing his pre-op examination, I found I couldn't hear the characteristic noise this blockage makes in the neck artery. When we did a new scan, amazingly, the blockage was reduced to 30%. The successful results made it clear that Big Ed's outcome was not a fluke. You can read this success story on Chapter 6 in Cancel the Vascular Surgery, and throughout the book you'll meet many of my other patients who have reversed their health problems and shed excess weight. As each new patient's eating habits, lifestyle, and blood work were analyzed, an intriguing pattern emerged. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, responded in exactly the same manner to certain foods and behaviors. Soon other people I've come to call club members began arriving, asking me to teach them about diet evolution. Although I never advertised this program, word of mouth has changed my practice forever. 3 days a week I teach these members how to stay away from me, earning the nickname No More Mr. Knife Guy. The remaining 2 days I operate on people who don't listen to me or haven't yet heard my message. Most of my surgery patients soon become club members too. With remarkable consistency, not only do their cholesterol problems disappear, but also so do their weight problems, hypertension, diabetes, and arthritis. We've even established preventative and treatment programs at a local cancer center. Most of what I've learned from the research on myself and thousands of volunteers flies in the face of what health professionals have been taught about health, diet, and chronic disease. It confirms, though, that we are genetically programmed to eat a diet that helps quickly reproduce our genes, but is actually killing us, the body that houses them. This deadly diet activates a host of killer genes designed to ensure that you don't stick around very long, and is also in part the cause of the epidemic of obesity sweeping the nation and spreading virus-like to the rest of the world. I am offering you the opportunity to take a different path. When you've finished part 1 of this book, you'll have a basic understanding of how your genes work and how you can reprogram them. You'll do this by slowly re-evolving your diet to take advantage of how evolution has programmed your genes to respond to the things you do and eat. By sending the right messages to your genes, you can restore your health, lose excess weight, and likely extend your life. In part 1, you'll learn how to identify the foods and behaviors that leave you open to disease and chronic health conditions, and how to eliminate or moderate them. Reintroduce the key foods, behaviors, and nutritional compounds that promote health and longevity. Turn off those killer genes. Because 90% of the cells in your body are replaced every 3 months, the great news is that you can create a new you in as little as 90 days. In part 2, I'll provide you with an easy-to-follow 3-phase program that lays the groundwork for achieving life-changing results in as little as 3 months. Welcome to the club. Part 1. A new way to communicate with your genes. Chapter 1. Your genes are running the show. If you're anything like me, I know you're champing at the bit to get going on diet evolution. But hold your horses. I've found that most of us can stick to a program only if we understand how and why we got to our present state of affairs. The next 4 chapters will do just that. You can thank Mom and Dad for your beautiful baby blues, as well as your hair color, height, and build. All these traits were encoded in copies of their genes, half of them hers, the other half his, that now reside in your body. Any children you have will in turn have copies of half of your genes and half of your partner's, and so on through generations to come. Determining our appearance and myriad other characteristics is just one way in which our genes rule our lives. As you'll soon learn, they also play a more clandestine role. The answer to why almost all attempts to lose weight fail resides in your genes and the lies they've been feeding you. Once you understand how genes behave and how their behavior controls your behavior, you'll be rewarded with an understanding of how you can lose those extra pounds, regain your health and vitality, and set the stage for a long, vigorous life. I'm sure you have heard that if you feed your genes right, all your health problems will disappear. But here you are, stuck in the same old rut. I'm going to prove to you that you're in poor health and overweight because you're feeding your genes exactly what they want. Let me assure you, your genes are using you for their health and longevity, not yours. In fact, your longevity stands in their way. So sit back, open your mind, and be willing to suspend everything you've ever known about yourself. But first, let's get down to basics. Genes as microcomputers. I've found that it helps to think of genes as tiny computer programs. On your computer, the letter A, for example, is coded as 1000001. Whenever I strike A on the keyboard, the code of zeros and ones tells my computer to make an A appear on the screen. Think of your body as a computer and your genes as its operating system. Genes are pieces of information composed of hundreds or even thousands of sugars and proteins arranged in sequences that spell out the process the gene wants a cell to perform. They contain all the information needed to tell each cell what to do, but in this case, the keys that turn genes on or off are circulating hormones, neurotransmitters, and numerous other information carriers, particularly compounds in food. To continue the computer metaphor, these codes work much as typing an internet address into your web browser tells it what information you want. Your genes are totally dependent on your body to protect them and house them until a new computer, in the form of your offspring, can take on these tasks. We need our genes as much as they need us. Your body only works when its operating system, your genes, tell it what to do. Over millions of years, the communication between our genes and the human body has undergone continuous improvements and upgrades, all to ensure perpetuation of the genes. Despite myriad improvements, much like Vista replacing Windows or Panther replacing Tiger, the basic operating system of your genetic program remains the same. Okay, you head shakers, if all this just seems too fantastic to believe, let me ask you why you have no trouble accepting the fact that you can watch Oprah on your cell phone, thanks to invisible electrical impulses from outer space that communicate with cell towers to activate tiny computer programs in your handheld appliance. An invisible but equally powerful comparable process also happens in our bodies. Why do you think that after 2 months female dorm mates find their menstrual periods have synchronized? Their hormones sent messages through thin air, rather like text messaging, for them to ovulate at the same time. Hormones, or plant chemicals, stimulate genes to either switch on or off, determining what's going to happen in each cell, each part of the body, and each person. Your genetic autopilot. Indeed, whether you realize it or not, your fate is being controlled by a hidden system that runs most of your cellular, hormonal, nervous system, and aging processes without your conscious input. It does this so that the thinking you doesn't screw up the process of moving genetic material forward in time. If you've seen Stanley Kubrick's classic 2001 A Space Odyssey, in which intergalactic astronauts travel in a spaceship autopiloted by a computer they nickname HAL, you can envision what's going on in your body. HAL takes care of running all the spacecraft's functions with minimal human input. But when the astronauts try to take over the vehicle, they realize that HAL is in total control, and they're just along for the ride. When they attempt to thwart HAL, he tries to destroy them. Your autopilot is usually invisible, but I'm convinced that we constantly receive warning messages from it when processes head in the wrong direction. For example, right now you're breathing without thinking about it, but the moment you do, you become conscious of your inhalations and exhalations. Now, let's do a quick test. Stop listening and time yourself as you hold your breath as long as you can. Were you able to go for 2 minutes? Up to 3 minutes? Or were you gasping for air at 30 seconds? You mean you were forced to take a breath? How can that be? Aren't you in charge of your body? I ask you to perform a simple task such as holding your breath, and now you're telling me that it was not under your control. Congratulations. You've just met your autopilot, your second self. This mechanism is there for a very important reason: to keep your genetic code from being wasted, in case you get the crazy notion to stop breathing when you're asleep or unconscious, among other things. That's just one of the many examples of how HAL's mission is more important than yours. We now realize that this operational program is far more than a second nervous system over which we have little or no control. Rather, it's a highly sophisticated system of specialized cells, and the genes within them, including those that produce and sense hormones, govern your immune system, line your gut, all in constant communication with each other without your conscious input. If you're still having trouble with this concept, consider the autopilot program on an airplane. Once the human pilot inputs data about the destination into a computer, the autopilot controls direction, speed, thrust, flaps, pitch, and yaw. The autopilot doesn't see where the plane is going, doesn't feel how fast it is flying, but based on information sent from sensors in the plane or bouncing off satellites, it pretty much knows where it is in space and time, allowing it to fly the plane and land safely. But input the wrong information, and the autopilot will dutifully fly you directly into a mountain, because that's where you told it to go. You'll understand more what I mean by this in the next chapter, when I'll explain how your current way of eating is giving your autopilot the wrong information, programming you for disaster. Programmed for survival. At the most basic level, our genes program us to do 3 things, all with the same purpose: to reproduce. That's right, your genetic code wants nothing more than to keep living. Notice that I didn't say it wants to keep you alive. Your genes are only using you as a host. When they're done with you, they throw the switch, activating the self-destruct killer genes, and your days are numbered. Bummer. Now let's look at the 3 directives for which we are genetically hardwired. Find and conserve energy. This one sounds like a no-brainer, but for almost all animals, and plants too, obtaining adequate nutrition has traditionally been an iffy proposition. Starvation not only kills directly, but also weakens an animal, leaving it more vulnerable to a predator. If you're dead, you can't pass on your genes to the next generation. So obtaining adequate calories with the least expenditure of effort is a primary driving force for all living things. If an animal is consistently in overdrive, burning up mucho calories in pursuit of food, its genes get the message that this combination of genetic material isn't a very good design, and therefore should be weeded out. What this means for you is that your genes are programmed to send messages to your body to keep your metabolism low and to eat high-calorie foods. Our genes are not only willing participants in this almost irresistible force to eat high-calorie foods, they also drive you to this behavior. Just as you can't suppress the eventual need to take a breath, The drive to conserve energy and obtain the most energy in the form of calories for the least effort is overpowering. Just think about that the next time you get in the drive-through line at a fast food joint. Then consider this. Studies of overweight people show that if hunger strikes when there is no food in the house, they often won't make the effort to go out and get it. Your computer...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?